life. Hi everyone, Dominic here with Smart Catholics Mastermind and excited to be joined by Anne DeSantis. Welcome, Anne. Good to have you with us.
It's great to be here with you. And I love Smart Catholics and I love the work that you're doing too.
Well, thank you. And for those who don't know, Anne has been an absolutely phenomenal friend and a massive supporter this whole past year since Smart Catholics gotten off the ground. Don't mind my corgi in the background. But very quickly, Smart Catholics Mastermind, it's a live series to meet the minds and hearts of our creators, the leaders, and hosts in our community. They devote their time and talent to mastering their vocation so that you can live a fuller life faster. And what I'd love to do is take a step back from the wonderful ministry that you're doing with the foundation and then yourself. I want to introduce people to who you are. So, could you share a story with us about a moment when you began to realize you wanted to take a certain direction in your life and maybe you couldn't turn back? What is that story?
Yes. And that story will go back to the year of 1999. And I was 34 years old at the time. And I had my second child, my daughter, Sean. She was born. And a really good childbirth, no problems. Health wise, I felt fine. I mean, really, it was a very good experience. But I guess it was within about maybe a month later, I started feeling sick. And what it came down to was I thought it was asthma. I thought it was something to do with breathing or allergies or something. And then had discovered after going to the doctor, getting some tests, that it was a rare disease, basically. It's called peripartum cardiomyopathy. Some of you who are watching might know already what that is. But what it is a congestive heart failure that affects women after pregnancy. Usually it comes on either at the very end of a pregnancy or right after the baby is born. I found out that this disease does not really have very much to do with your health history, with your heredity, your biological circumstances, whatever they may be. It's kind of one of those things that they just have a lot of question marks and as to why a person gets this, and it's very rare too. So if you're watching this and thinking, "My goodness, I hope no one I know gets it," chances are most people won't because it's about 1 in 10,000 pregnancies. So it's an extremely rare disease. So what happened was I was diagnosed with this disease in around March of 1999, and it was absolutely devastating to me because I had a 2.5-year old daughter, my older daughter Elaine, and a brand new baby that was only like maybe less than 2 months old. And my only prayer was, Lord, please, please, I don't ask for much. I mean, we all hear that story, right? When you're in a bad situation, uh, I just asked him if he would allow me to live maybe 5 or 10 years because I wasn't sure with congestive heart failure just how long that would go. And at the time, my faith was kind of lukewarm, I guess. I had gotten back to regular attendance at Mass and even back to confession maybe a couple years before that because I'd been away from the sacrament of confession. Um, but when I prayed that prayer, my mother actually had suggested to me, why don't you have a priest come over and pray over you uh, after I'd gotten this diagnosis? So, long story short, the priest came over. He administered the sacrament of the sick. And as the story goes, I guess it was maybe within a week later when I had gone back to the doctors to get checked again. The person that was giving me the test literally, she actually started crying. She said, I your heart was not looking good at all. She said, I can't confirm this right away, but from what I'm seeing here on my screen, things are looking really, really good. And so later on that day, the doctor called and he said, yes, I'm confirming that your heart actually, the enlargement went back like to its normal size. And I have to say, I've had a lot of good moments in my life, but I don't know whether anything really compares with that exact moment in time when you get that news that, you're going to make it. You're probably going to make it. And that was, I'm happy to say it's 22 years ago. And, My health has been good all the way up until this point. And that was the beginning of me giving back to God what I promised him. You know, you hear that story, God, if you do this for me, I promise for the rest of my life, I'll be devoted to you. Yeah, that's pretty much my story, is what happened with me, is that I promised him, and I try to keep that promise, that I will never go by a day in my life without being grateful, without making my faith and my religion the most important aspect of who I am, without evangelizing, without letting people know that there's hope. And even if you're watching this right now and you haven't gotten a good diagnosis for whatever that health problem or, mental health issue, whatever it is, God is still with you. God has you here right now for a reason. And we don't know how long any of our lives are going to be, and even me, I prayed for 5 or 10 years and I've gotten 22 so far. So I pray that that continues, because I do want to live a long life. And for my family, for those who are my friends and people like you, Dominic, who care about about me and about me staying around for with all of you here to minister to others. So that's the big turning point in my life. So thanks so much for asking.
That's Thank you for sharing something that I'm sure is very personal, very vulnerable, right? Very, very close to you. So I appreciate the chance to know you a little more like that. So that being the case, then out of that situation, you started touching on that point about um, being present to others, accompanying them, uh, you know, I think that is a huge part of your work now with the foundation, and then your own personal ministry that you're sort of lending to the foundation, and also, you know, giving and sharing with us at Smart Catholics. Can you speak to that? Out of that moment in your life, what are you now doing with yourself? Where are you now going?
Well, I appreciate that. Now, for a lot of people who are watching, they know me from the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. And we were formed through a religious order, through the Mercedarians. That's at nonnatus.org. Please do check it out. I talk about that a lot on all my videos, because what we do is we offer pastoral accompaniment for families in crisis. Uh, the Mercedarians, the religious order who invited me to be this director of this foundation, uh, they made a decision that they wanted to start out the ministry with making outreach to Catholics who are affected by divorce and separation. Now, there's a lot of people who are affected by divorce and separation, whether you're the couple, the person, or it's your parents, or your grandparents, or a good friend of yours. I think in some ways, all of us are somewhat affected by divorce and separation. So we offer prayer, we offer podcasts and videos, we offer free pastoral accompaniment sessions with a Mercedarian friar, and we also offer a lot of programs and events. So I don't want to make this a complete commercial just for the foundation, because I know that you wanted me to talk about what I'm doing as well. But I can't mention my life without saying that,
Mhm.
to be quite honest with you, I do a lot of things. I am an author, I'm a podcaster. I even do a little bit of like 55 plus modeling and acting in the greater Philadelphia area, mostly for commercials. And it's a hobby, really. That's what it comes down to, is it's a hobby. But the most important thing that I do, and I'm speaking to the people that know me from the foundation, my mission is this foundation. My mission is being number one thing is what I am, other than a wife and a mother and a Catholic, is
Mhm.
I'm the director for this beautiful foundation. It's my honor to be a part of this organization and to try to help these people that we're trying to help. Now, if it's okay, Dominic, I do want to talk about another thing that I'm doing right now. And this is a
Please.
side note from the foundation, is that I've authored a new book. And like I said, this is not this part of my ministry is not to do with the foundation. It's something I'm doing on my own. It's in my own endeavor. I've written a book called Love and Care for the Marginalized. It's 40
Beautiful.
reflections for Catholics. And I came up with this idea after what we went through this past year with the pandemic,
Mhm.
that so many people are marginalized. And when I say that word, I'm sure that all of you think of things like homelessness, or those who have been rejected for some reason in society. I mean, there's so many to mention. But I don't get into all of those details in my book, but I do talk about the fact that every single one of us knows somebody who's being marginalized.
Mm-hmm.
And I ask that question is, you know, who are those people? Are they people in our families, inside our homes? Because they are. Are they people in our extended families, in our neighborhoods, in our schools, in our businesses, in our Catholic ministries? Really, there's even people that we're working with in Catholic ministry who are being marginalized.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what this book is all about: is helping us to have that awareness about marginalization.
Right.
And I think in my own things that I've gone through in my life, whether it was the heart condition, there was another time in my life that my family was going through a difficult time, my immediate family.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God everything worked out, everything's fine. But there was a time in my life that I did feel somewhat marginalized because I was going through something trying to help my one daughter, and it was very challenging for me. And at the time, and there's no one to really blame for this, no one is to blame, but I felt very much alone and unsupported at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I had two spiritual directors who had died. One had cancer, and then actually, they both had cancer, and they died within a year. And I was on a mission to find a new spiritual director. And I looked all over the place. I called I called different churches and monasteries and uh, other Catholic organizations looking for someone that could be my spiritual director.
Mm-hmm.
When finally, on a random phone call, I called the religious order and spoke to who is now a priest. His name is Father Daniel Bowen.
Oh,
And
with the Mercedarians?
yes,
Okay.
and I told him, my story, what I was going through, and I was looking for a spiritual director. And he at the time wasn't a priest yet, so he couldn't be my spiritual director, but he referred me to another Mercedarian, Father Matthew Phelan, who used to be a part of the foundation that I represent, and now he's a pastor, a busy pastor up in Western New York. But that was the beginning of me meeting the Mercedarian order and then becoming a third order member with the Mercedarians. And that was also a joy to be able to live out that charism, because the fourth vow of that religious order is the willingness to give our lives for those who are in danger of losing their faith. And for me at
Wow.
the time, I was a pretty devoted Catholic person who was going to daily mass most of the time. But to be honest with you, the way that I was feeling about things that I was going through,
Mm-hmm.
I really think I got a taste of what it felt like to feel like I was in danger of losing my faith. And God used me at that time, got me through kind of a depression, I will say. Was able to get through that time, and it gave me an appreciation for what it means and what it feels like to be marginalized. But like I said, I'm here today. God got me through so many difficult times in my life, and that's why I want to help others, and that's why I wrote this book. So,
Beautiful. And then I think it's
yeah.
like, was it 40 distinct little reflections or meditations?
Yes, 40 meditations for Catholics. Now, for people who might want to purchase the book, all you need to do is go to charispublishing.com. It's spelled Charis publishing.com. I'm also offering a little special for anybody who's watching.
Oh, fun.
If you want an autographed copy, I'm doing free shipping, just $10, and we can do that via Venmo or PayPal. Just get in touch with me on my contact link at andesantis.com if you want an autographed copy for $10.
Nice. I'll drop that. We'll put that information in the show notes after this. So
Thank you.
that's exciting about your book. Let's move into our last question. Sort of big question here for you. You've been such a big part of what we're doing with Smart Catholics, and we've sort of spoken on this in the past. So I'd love to get your take, and you've already touched on this in what we've just in the last 10 minutes, but um, within Smart Catholics, we talk a lot about being a faith first responder, somebody who is actively part of that front line of witness and of the point of contact with our families and our communities, because we're not all called to be great apologists and have podcasts and do all these things, but we can all be present to friends, family, co-workers. So in that sense, we're like a first responder in this great field hospital that is the church. So I'm curious, how would you articulate, how would you describe in your own words what a first responder or a faith first responder is, especially in light of the work that you're doing?
Well, it's an honor to talk about that. That term field hospital, to be quite blunt, that's one of my favorite things that Pope Francis has said, and I try to live that every day of my life. We hear a lot about, you and I are both involved in Catholic ministry, and we see a lot of videos on social media about being well catechized and about there's a lot of great work that's going out there in Catholic education and catechesis. But the one thing I think I'd like to say is that I think my role as a first responder is a little different. Yes, it's about catechesis. Yes, it's about educating and knowing the faith and theology of the body and all those beautiful things. But I think first and foremost, what we're called to be as Catholics is to be compassionate. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't mean that not we're still rejecting sin, right? But
Right,
we're
right.
compassionate, empathetic,
Hmm.
okay? And it is important to be nice and kind to people. I know there's been a big debate about that in Catholic theology, whether does it matter to be nice? Well, I'm here to say, in my humblest of opinions, being nice is very important. We have to be kind and nice to people. You
Hmm.
can't just throw them a catechism or give them all those facts about the faith, but not really care about what matters to them. And that is what my book is all about. That's what Love and Care for the Marginalized is all about. Nobody's going to listen to us unless we care about what's important to them. And
Mm.
to me, being a first responder is using these two things on the side of my head, right? Using my ears and listening to what people are saying. I don't need to convince them and be sure that they get what I'm saying and be sure that they do exactly and live exactly as I live, because they're different people than I am. But I'm here to tell them that the Catholic Church has a beautiful way of life. It means universal. And also, we have the sacraments of the church, those beautiful sacraments, the Holy Eucharist, the sacrament of confession, the sacraments of service, confirmation. I mean, all these beautiful things that we can offer. But we have to let God do the work, right? We can't push
Right.
ourselves on people either. So to me, that's what it means to be a first responder.
Beautiful. Thank you. I love the way that I remember that being kind of a not watershed moment, but it was a big moment for me and some of my siblings when we were growing up, and we realized, wait, we actually have to be nice people too. I mean, if we're
Yeah,
just always trying to be right, but we're never nice, I mean, nobody's going to want to hang out with us. So,
right,
so we started reevaluating how we were, communicating, trying to be right.
right. I
Anyhow,
agree.
um, so let's. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up. But if you had 1 minute and to share your most important or favorite message with the world, what would you say?
I think the most important message that I can share with all of you is to all of us to love and care for the marginalized. That's a big part of what it means to be Catholic. In the book of Matthew, chapter 25, when Jesus talks about feeding the hungry, giving drink to the thirsty. And then, of course, we have all of the spiritual works of mercy. We need to do those all the time. We have to remember that being Catholic and living out our faith is not just rules, it's not just what's printed inside of a book, it's living it. It's being a good person. It is being nice and kind to people too. It really matters. It matters how we treat people. We should try not to exercise tempers and um, our vices against others. We should try our best to live out the virtues, and that's really, to my opinion, that's how we're going to evangelize people, is by doing that. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. I like that. It matters how we treat people. I think
Yes.
that's kind of been the message of Pope Francis' pontificate. Is it matters how we treat people, not just that we're right or sharing things, but how we're doing that. So
Absolutely.
wonderful. Again, thank you so much for joining us, Anne, and for everybody who was watching live. If you're watching the replay, thanks again. Smart Catholics is a community of people who are free of ads and trolls and toxicity. We support the Holy Father, and we come together with a culture of kindness and learning. So if that sounds like you, we'd love you to come on over and join us, jump in. Most importantly, the world needs what you have to give. And that's kind of why we host these mastermind discussions, is maybe somebody's story can inspire you a little more in your faith journey. So God bless everyone. This has been Dominic and Anne with Mastermind.
God bless. Thank